Alright guys, today we are going to be doing clouds on acrylic. Now I've already done most of my prep work. I am going to be using Mia's Secret Clear and a blue and a purple that I mixed using two-tone Hidden Berry from SM Nail Candy, Mia's Secret Purple, and Rest in Peace Snipsy from the Glam Trap House. Oh, and West Coast Baby. Those are both from the Glam Trap House. That would be the Plum from Mia's Secret Color Punch collection. Now I mix those, in a little dapping dish to get the right color that I wanted. I'm also using my 8080 grit Pana files for shaping because they're magical. I've already got my tips on. I'm going to add a thin layer of clear just to add some strength and give me a nice clean base because colored acrylic is very weak. Well, not very weak, but it's weaker than clear for sure, and you don't want it to break or be uneven, so you want to add that nice thin layer of clear on the bottom of any colored acrylic that you're working with. Now I'm going to do this to every nail all the way across. We're going to go ahead and skip ahead to applying the colored acrylic because if you've seen one, you've seen them all. Now I'm doing a purple to blue ombre, so we are going to start with the blue because when I'm doing ombre I like to work from the bottom up. That seems to work out easier for me. I usually just lay the bottom half down, and then after I get that nice and neat, I take a small bead back up to the blend line, and I blend that up, kind of feather it up, and then I go back and add the top because I seem to have a lot more luck that way if I pull the ombre down as opposed to pulling it up. I'm not sure why. So we're going to get our blue all laid down. Make sure you're watching your sides as usual. You guys, I finally did my nails, so they're not all gravediggery like they were in most of the videos. Finally got my nails done. In case you were wondering, that red is from SM Nail Candy, it's a red apple, and the black is Black Mamba from the Glam Trap House. Those are my two favorites. You see me use them a lot because neither one of them marble, which I don't know if you know, but with colored acrylic, a lot of times if the colors are really intense or pigmented, they tend to marble really easy and you have to really work them. Neither of these marble even the slightest bit. It's amazing. Now I got my blue all laid down. For what I'm doing here, I kind of want them to, I don't want the ombre to be really contrasted. I want it to really just be a gradient. And just lightly turn to blue at the end. That's why I'm laying the blue almost all the way up, and then I'm going to take the purple and lay the purple almost all the way down. That way it gives me a kind of different transition. So this purple is just Mia's Secret Color Punch collection. It's the plum mixed with the two-tone Hidden Berry from SM Nail Candy, which is just like a white glitter with a blue kind of tint to it. It's really subtle though, like you can't see blue, but it just has like the slightest hint of blue when the light hits it. It's really pretty, and mixed with this purple, it really lightens it up and gives it a sky effect. I mixed the two blues together, the Rest in Peace Snipsy and the West Coast Baby, and also mixed that with the two-tone Hidden Berry just for some sparkle. So it kind of tied the two colors together and gave them the same undertone, the same like hint of bluish white sparkle. Not much though, just a little bit, because I don't want glitter, because it's a sky look. Now I'm almost done with my ombre here, and I'm going to do the same purple blue ombre on all the nails, but I'm going to do them at different points on the nail. I want them to kind of blend back and forth, almost like a sky. And I don't want a real harsh line of demarcation. I don't want the ombre to be really noticeable. That's why I kind of move it back and forth between the nails. Now we're almost done with this here. And once we get done with that and do the rest of the nails, we are going to cap it in clear. And then we are going to lay down our clouds and then our top coat and then some pearlescent powder that I have and then another top coat on top of that. Now we are going to go ahead and finish up this one and then probably skip ahead because you guys, once you've seen one, you don't need to see me do every single nail. However, we'll just go ahead over that ombre again. If you can see, I started this one a little lower. And the brush I'm using it's a size 12 Panna wooden brush. It's crimped. Panna is probably one of my favorite because they just have a really fat head on them and they hold so much more monomer. So you can either get bigger beads or wetter beads, whichever you prefer. Now, because of the way that I mixed this blue, you can see that it's not even all the way through, which is kind of what I was going for. You'll see different swirls throughout of the blue and the white when I lay the blue down. It gives a really cool effect. I kind of like it. Now, you want to make sure that the color variation isn't too harsh. That's not really what I was going for. Like I said, I just wanted kind of a hazy look to it. And now, like I've said before with the ombre videos, you want to make sure that when you get your blend down, you have it exactly as you want it. You're not going to file any of this. You're going to just cap it and clear, because if you file it, you lose that blend that you worked so hard on. So you want to make sure it's exactly how you want because you're just capping it after that. There will be no filing or fixing or whatever. So, take as long as you need. Now, I got all my ombre laid down. I'm basically just going to cap it in clear here, so I'm not going to force you to sit through all of that either. We'll do one just for, educational purposes and to mark time. And you want to make sure that you're capping your sides always, at least a thin layer on the sides, because again, that's still colored acrylic. You don't want to break from the sides either. And I like to, when I'm doing my clear, just make sure it's really wet and just work it all the way down. Now I'm going to go ahead and file. Using my Panna 8080 grit files, and really guys, these are just the best for shaping because my shaping is garbage without them, and they really do all the work for you because your file doesn't like flex or move around. It stays completely straight because with the coarser grit you don't have to push as hard to move the acrylic. So, and don't mind my awful knobby knuckles, they're just a hot mess. And obviously you can see I'm reusing my file here, which you obviously if you're taking clients you don't want to do that. Throw them away in between each one or use ones that can be reused and sanitized. But for practice sake, I'm just going to go ahead and reuse it because why not? So now we'll go ahead and skip ahead. Now we're going to go ahead and buff. Buffing blocks really, they just make such a difference. They really take out every little lump and bump and just give you a completely smooth surface, which I know a lot of us struggle with. So definitely get a good buffing blocks with different grits on each side. Most of them come with two different levels of coarseness on each side. One's a little coarser to even everything out, and one's finer to smooth and get rid of any lines. Just go through and just buff the crap out of every side, and it really gives you a lot more finished look. Now we will go ahead to wiping down. before I do anything after I'm finished buffing, I like to wipe down with acetone with a lint-free wipe. You definitely want to use lint-free because otherwise you'll leave little threads and bits of fabric behind, or cotton or whatever. So you want to get specifically lint-free wipes. Wipe it down with acetone, and because it melts acrylic, that gets rid of any little grooves or whatever left behind from the buffing block and any dust before you go in with your design or your top coat. Now for this I'm using a pearlescent powder. It's a lot like the chrome powder but a lot lighter, and it just gives it a pearl finish. And this is just, you know, dollar store white art nail polish. It literally from Dollar Tree. It doesn't really matter. We're going to top coat it with gel polish anyway, so it doesn't really need to be anything spectacular. You definitely want to make sure it's quality enough to give you the color that you want and not, you know, be gross looking. And then that's the Violet Lavender collection of gel polish that I'm using for the pink. You want to take a line brush and a dotting tool. I think I ended up not even using the line brush for this. I ended up doing it all with a dotting tool. This is the fun part. So you want to take your white and dip the dotting tool in, and all you're really going to do is make a couple of dots in a row, some higher, some lower, and just, that's it, really. You want to make them kind of random, although not really a big fan of how that turned out. So the cool part is, since we haven't top coated or finished anything, just wipe it off and start over if you don't like how the design came out. Especially if it's gel polish, because that doesn't even dry. So, and this is regular polish, but just take a thin little wipe with acetone and wipe it off and start over. You don't have to leave it on if you're not happy with it. So we're literally just taking a dotting tool and just do a couple of dots in a row. Really, you just freehand this. There's no real one way to do it. And just swirl it around a little bit. Try to leave the bottom part a little flatter for the clouds. Like, not necessarily a line because that makes it a little too harsh. So just give it swirls, shorter on one side than the other, and you get nice puffy clouds. And then it gives you a really cool 3D effect too if you use the dotting tool, because it kind of leaves it raised instead of using like a paintbrush where it would be flat, which that works too, but for this I wanted kind of a 3D thing. Now to give it a little more of the 3D look, that's what the pink gel polish is for, which I'll show you in a minute. Now you're just going to go through and do this randomly through all of it, you know, on each nail. I always tend to like overthink it, and either I make them too evenly spaced out in an attempt to make them look random, which is ironic, or I like put too many to try to make it look not random, and then it looks overcrowded, and I basically never know when to stop. So me and my creative side tend to fight a little bit because it doesn't know what to do. Now we're just going to go through and do some happy little clouds. Bonus points if you know what I'm referring to. Just happy little clouds. And this is actually my first set where I've done any kind of freehand nail art. I know it's not a big deal, but it is to me because I've never done this before. I usually do decals or color blocking or things of that nature. With the acrylic, I've never actually drawn or hand painted anything. So this was kind of a big deal to me. And you want to make sure that if you're using regular nail polish instead of gel polish, that it doesn't start drying up halfway through, which it will, because then you get this kind of chunky, weird, you can see how that one has like little chunks in the middle of it, and it doesn't give it, it doesn't have a very smooth finish, so we're just going to do that one again as well, because everything is fixable. It's only a mistake if they walk out the door with it. Now, obviously I'm using white here, but you don't have to. Actually, the pink, if you have a light enough pink, that gives it a really nice sunset appearance too, kind of like a dusk color to the clouds. It's really cool, which I'm also going to use here just to give the clouds a more 3D effect. Now we're just about done here. And as I'm finishing up this one, the first nail is kind of drying, so when we go back in with that pink gel polish, we're going to start back at the beginning where those are mostly dry at. Also, the benefit of using the pink here instead of the white like I did is that it gives it a softer, not so stark appearance, you know? Like the white stands out a lot on those colors because it's so white. And I do add a little bit of pink to soften it up, but it's still it still pops a lot, which I'm actually practicing. I'm practicing to do this design on someone. I wanted to make sure I could do it, and that's what she wanted. She wanted the clouds to be very, very visible, so that's what we are going with. Now we're going to take our dotting tool, use a different one if you want, and grab that pink gel polish. Oh, I guess I'm not going to start back at the beginning like I said I was. Would have been the smart thing to do. So I'm just taking a little bit of pink and doing the exact same thing but on a much smaller scale at the bottom, so it looks like a totally different, smaller cloud. And then I'm going to do that on each one of these. And really, it doesn't need to be perfect because they're clouds, so, you know, they're kind of messy anyway. We're just adding a little bit of pink to the bottom of each one. Now, since we're just about finished with that, I'll let that dry. Actually, we're going to cure that pink gel polish so that I can top coat this because the white's dry. Now, because it's just those little dots of pink that need done, I'm not going to bother putting it in the lamp. I'm going to use my UV flashlight, which these are really neat. It's still a UV LED light. You can get them at any hardware store for like 10 bucks. It does cure polygel, gel polish, anything like that. It usually says something like police, bodily fluid, flashlight, something like that. They're, like I said, they're 10 bucks. And they're really handy for stuff like this. Or if your lamp breaks, it's a nice low-cost replacement until you can get a new lamp. And you can get them in varying strengths too. But that, see how fast that just cured that pink gel polish. So now that's basically it. I'm going to, well, that's it for now. Now we're going to go in with our top coat. I'm going to go ahead and do one layer of top coat because I am going to use a pearlescent powder on top of this, but I don't want to add it straight to the acrylic because it tends to, if you add it straight to the acrylic on top of those designs, too much tends to stick, whereas if I put a layer of top coat on, it doesn't overwhelm it, and I can wipe it off if I need to. Once it's on the acrylic, it's really hard to get back off, so it's much easier if you do a layer of top coat first. I'm going to do a nice even thin layer, and since I'm doing 2 layers of top coat, I want to make sure that I'm doing them really thin, because if they're too thick, they will wrinkle once you start adding layers. So you definitely want to make sure that you're doing very thin layers. And this will help even out the appearance of the clouds too, the few layers of top coat. So we're going to go ahead and cure that. And then once that's done, I am going to take the pearlescent powder, now that everything's cured and, you know, finished. Just take an eyeshadow brush. This pearlescent powder is something special that I got from a printer that they use for paint and ink and things like that. This isn't really something you can get on Amazon, and I like to use it for this kind of thing because it works almost like the chrome powder, just it's pearl instead. So I just do a really thin, like really thin, because this stuff can be really overwhelming. So just do a really thin layer over all of them. It gives it kind of almost like a halo vibe, you know. And like you can see, it is really strong and intense. So I like to wipe as much of it off as possible so that I'm just giving it a little hint of that pearl, you know, like almost like dusk. Take a little bit of acetone because it still feels a little bit strong for me, and just dab at it just to kind of take some of that off and lighten it up a little bit. And then once I do that and get it to the effect that I want, we're just going to add our last layer of top coat and cure it. Again, thin layers because this is a second coat and it will wrinkle. And make sure that with each of those thin layers you're curing for the full time and that it's not tacky or sticky at all. Like I use a no wipe top coat from Mark Art, so mine's not typically tacky. You just want to make sure that you're thoroughly curing it so it doesn't wrinkle. And the top coat also helps kind of soften some of that pearlescent powder's appearance. It makes it blend a little better so it's not just a sheen. Now finish that up and go ahead and cure it one last time. We are just about done. And like I said, I really expected the clouds to be much more difficult than they turned out to be. Honestly, the clouds were the easiest part of it. I know Andrea gave me a nice tip for making them a little more flatter in appearance and not so 3D, is to take a Q-tip and kind of dab at it just to flatten it out and soak up some of that excess so that it's not sticking out so far or standing up so far off the nail. But that's really it, except like I said, on this one it's supposed to be more 3D, but we'll try it the other way in the next video. And there you go, that's the finished product. It doesn't even really look purple or blue anymore. It kind of has a gray, dusky appearance, but that's what we were going for. So if you guys have any questions, comment down below, or just message me directly. Most of you know how to do that. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks, guys.